Spoiler Alert is a production of ChanManV TV. Find out more about the show at chanmanv.tv. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 18 of Spoiler Alert. I'm ChanManV, and joining us today are Ellohime, Diction, and we've got our guest Omeed. What's up, buddy?
How's it going?
Good, good. And for those of you that don't know me,
great intro.
I know, man. I'm a pro, dude.
Everybody's
good.
Total pro.
Yo.
Those that don't know Omeed runs a very cool management agency. I guess it is officially agency company. I don't know how you want to describe it. Talent management group. There you go. Called OP Group. So he's also been a streamer in the past too. And of course a gamer, and apparently a very avid movie and TV show watcher also.
Well, not only that, but you've dabbled in cartoons before.
Yes.
Oh, really? Making them?
Yeah, tell us about that.
Making them?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
I actually have created 2 cartoons. One of them's on Netflix right now. It's called Huntic. It's all right. It's a weird Italian kid show. And then I created an anime called Kiba that was rough enough that the lawsuit for it paid for and occurred during my bachelor party.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, so over 100 episodes of animation, and yeah, good stuff. So I'm a big fan. Some of the folks that I've worked with in the past have worked with Justin Roiland.
Nice.
So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I know this because I got this Christmas, but Omeed and Cora worked together to get this bad boy.
Oh, wow.
This is you can kind of reflecting. You can see my screen.
Yeah.
Good thing I don't have any porn up. But you can actually see it's an illustration by Justin Roiland. It says Rick and Ello for 100 years. And,
wow, that's cool, man.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome, right? This is like one of honestly, out of all the things that I've ever gotten on Christmas, like in my whole life, this and a Nintendo 64 are my greatest gifts I've ever gotten on Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Nintendo 64 was a big deal because I was only allowed to play on my like home computer. My parents wouldn't let me have a console at the house because they thought I would get addicted to video games.
Yep, same here.
And they were wise.
They're very wise.
It's worked out, thank God, for the most part, but yeah, so I cherish it quite a bit. I'm pretty passionate about this show. I don't know if you guys know.
We couldn't tell like last week whenever you were talking about it.
Yeah. So Ello is the one that got me into Rick and Morty because I had gone down. We tried to go visit our clients in their native habitat. Because,
we lost you.
No, it's okay. You're good. You're good now.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
You're back.
We try to go visit our clients in their native habitats so that it's easier. We can take a little bit more time with people. And he and Cora were talking about like, oh, the show Rick and Morty is so good, blah blah blah. I love it. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I know anyone who's worked on that. So I sent a DM to a friend of mine who was the guy who created Codename Kids Next Door. His name's Tom Warburton. And I was like, hey, man, do you just randomly know anybody associated with Rick and Morty? Because one of my clients really loves it. And he's like, yeah, Justin Roiland was the creative director on my last show, Fish Hooks. So what do you want? And so I said that to Ello. And he goes, oh, I just want a pair of his used shoes, just
seriously
shoes, that would be great. And I'm like, how the fuck am I what? It's like, I'm gonna tell this dude, like, can you see if you can get his used shoes? And I was like, how about a sketch?
Why the fuck
How
do you want his
we talking
used
here?
shoes?
Like several heights?
I honestly don't even remember saying that, but it sounds like me.
I mean, do you want holy shoes? I mean, like, what exactly are you looking for here, man?
I don't know, man. I just kind of like want to wear them and feel inspired
Be in
by
his
him.
shoes?
You know? I want to walk a mile in them.
Like a mile in his shoes. No, that's awesome. No, but for those of you joining, of course, you can tell we are doing Rick and Morty today. And hopefully you guys have...
Apparently their game just released too, like an hour ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh,
virtual reality.
Virtual reality game. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Apparently it's really good too. So good timing on us for
I think the embargo lists at 11. And if either of you guys need codes, let me know.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, my phone.
It's going nuts. It's totally
it's going nuts. Sorry about that.
But we're doing...
It must be ChanManV. It must be ChanManV calling me because I'm late.
Yeah, it's me calling you and the random dude that I was texting earlier too. No, but we're doing season 1, season 2 today, guys. So no season 3. We'll probably wait until season 3 is over before we...
Because it's not out. We only had the first episode for like 6 hours on April Fool's Day.
Yeah, and for those of you who are just tuning into the show for the first time, basically the premise of the show, we go over it every show just because there's it's kind of delicate. Some people don't like spoilers and all that good stuff for the things they've watched or haven't watched. But we basically cover shows, TV, games, comic books, all that stuff. We pick one thing. We all spend a week watching it, and then we come back and we discuss it the week after. So last week we picked Rick and Morty, kind of like a book club. We spent this week watching it, so we're coming back and talking about it today. And then at the end of the show, we will reveal our next movie, show, comic, whatever, and you guys will, hopefully grab that and watch it or read it, and then we will meet back the week after this, and we will discuss that. So that's kind of the premise of the show. So if you don't like spoilers for Rick and Morty, you haven't seen it, this is not where you need to be. You need to be somewhere else, because we are going to jump into it and talk about all the things we like and dislike and the ups and downs and all that good shit. So now that that's all off the table, where shall we begin?
Oh my God.
Where shall we begin?
First off, I watched every episode in 2 days, okay? For the first time. I must have been the only person on Twitch that's never seen Rick and Morty until now. So I powered through it the last 2 nights. Just finished, literally, like 10 minutes before the show.
Did you actually finish the last episode?
Yeah, I finished the last episode because I got halfway through the last episode, and Omeed was like, "Hey, did you see the wedding part?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're at." Well, I've gotten halfway through, and they're like sitting at the altar, and they're giving speeches and stuff. And it's like, "Oh, you haven't seen the second half yet? It's completely different." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, let me
just real quick."
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a big twist.
All of a sudden, there's this intergalactic craziness at the end of it. Yeah, so I literally just finished it while we were setting up.
Yeah, man. You got to check your squanch, bro. You got to check your squanch. Anyways, it's funny because like I watched through it again just to clear, just to make everything crystal clear for the show. But I mean, that watching through that was probably the 20th time I've watched through the series, because it's one of those shows that you want to expose to people. Like you want people to see it. And so you'll have a friend over and it's like, "Have you seen Rick and Morty?" "Oh no, okay, watch this episode." And you start watching it, and then I start, and then they come back and we go through the series.
Down the rabbit hole.
Friend. Yeah, down the rabbit hole we go. I just keep. Yeah,
it's the classic Adam looking at their faces.
Yeah, I do, man, I do. Every time something funny happens that I know I laughed at the first time I saw it, I'm like, "Oh, you see that? That was funny, right? It was funny." Like I make
a lot of those moments. Holy crap!
Yeah, it's like the best way is to watch.
You're not even watching; you're just staring at them like
the whole time.
Please laugh. Please laugh.
This is season. It's season
Our
1.
Our friendship depends on how you react to these jokes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my fun now is to watch them. So it's season 1 of Omeed watching season 1 of Rick and Morty. So I just watch Omeed while he watches it, and that's the show for me.
So are you the type of person that when you're sitting next to them, like you nudge them when something funny happens?
No, I don't nudge. No,
okay.
I'm not. No, I don't do that. That's like that's fucked up. That's over the. But
that's,
I will.
That's 4D
I will
right
occasionally like look. Like I do the look. Like the expecting, like kind of thing. It's just something I do, man. I don't know. Nobody's ever complained to me about it, but I feel like secretly sensitive or like I don't know. I'm more self-aware of it, and it makes me like self-conscious about it. But I did that every single time. I actually I like what is it? What's the movie where they opened up his eyes? Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah,
yeah, Clockwork Orange. All my friends to watch it, and anyways, I cleaned their eyeballs while we were doing it.
Yeah, the first time, so because Ello told me about it and just ranted and raved about how good it was, so I went home and watched the first episode and really didn't like it. I just could not get into it. It's like, oh, these characters have really annoying voices. Really kind of, it's sort of a difficult animation style to watch. It's like very, very stressful looking characters, and they're just always screaming at each other. And it took me watching it a few times before I actually got it. And I was like, oh, I see what's happening here. This is just some messed up, insane shit.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was for me too. But BoJack was the same way for me. It took like 2 or 3 episodes before you get in that frame of mind. But yeah, the first few are just like, I'm listening to the intro video. I'm like, really? Like they're using this like music for the intro video, and yeah, like you said, the voices take a little bit. It took a little while to appreciate, but man, I love Rick's voice now. Like at first it was so jarring, but now I'm like, oh yeah, it's so good. It's
well, yeah, you can tell that he developed it too.
Yeah,
right. Because if you watch the first couple episodes, there's so much more burping and stuttering. Yeah. And then over time they kind of smoothed that out. So I think they kind of got that feeling as they were recording. That maybe is a little too much, because if you watch the later episodes, he talks a lot smoother, a lot less stutters. They really only start stuttering when they get really, really frustrated.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that in the process to get that natural burping sound out of for Rick's voice, Justin Roiland actually drank a bunch of cheap beer for those scenes. Like he had cheap. I'm not joking.
Really?
I'm not joking. He literally
sacrificing for his art.
Yeah, it really was that. Like he really did have cheap beer. And this is what I read. I mean, it was legit what I read. I think it's the internet. Who knows? But he would actually drink the beer, and then as he was doing the lines, the whenever just happened to feel it, he would just in the middle of whatever he was doing. Yeah. So all those burps at the beginning were natural. Also, Morty, the name Morty in the first episode is said like over like 50 times or something in the first episode. Like every line is almost like, look, Morty, we've got to get the mega seeds, Morty. Right. Like every single. And so the people, whoever the higher ups, the powers that be, told Justin Roiland that he needed to cut down on the use of the word Morty too. So they were like, smooth out Rick's speech, not as many burps, and don't say Morty. So you see that, like Omeed said, over the next season and into season 2, they actually smooth it all out. But I'm actually curious, Chan. So what's your take on because this is you watching it over like 2 days.
Yeah.
Was it too much in 2 days? Like too much funny, too much to process? Because there's some deep shit that happens in that show. Yeah, I've not really seen in other shows. I mean, what's your overall opinion of Rick and Morty?
My overall opinion of Rick and Morty is like, it's really, really good, but it's one of those series that I do need to rewatch like multiple times, because I know I missed a ton of things. Because even when I was watching, I did catch little things. I know I missed, I don't know how many little things, up to that point. So, like finishing it right now, I know I need to go back and watch it again. 2 days is probably a little too little. I mean, it's too little time to watch it thoroughly, I would say, even though the episodes are really short. They're like 20 minutes or 22 minutes each. But like having a deadline is a lot different than just like, relaxing and getting a chance to watch, at your own pace. But overall though, I think it's super funny. I think it's funnier if I were sitting with a friend though, versus, you were saying that there are some moments that you sit by yourself and you start laughing. And there are definitely some moments like that. But there are definitely moments where it's just like, I wish I was watching it with somebody else, just laughing, alongside. Because I know I'd be laughing a lot more.
Well, now you can. You can watch it again with friends. Like I do 20 plus times.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Every time.
My wife does not appreciate that kind of stuff. She's like, every time I'll be watching, she'll be like, that is so stupid. I'm like, exactly. That's exactly exactly why it's funny.
You shouldn't have told me that. I wanted to, meet your wife and have I don't know, build a rapport with her and be friends with her and all that good stuff. Now I have no interest in knowing I don't know her, want to know her at all. So
no, her humor, or her sense of humor, or just what she likes from the standpoint of comedy and humor is completely different than that. But so yeah, I was basically watching it just by myself. I think my son would enjoy it, but there are definitely parts that he's almost ready to watch those parts, but I probably should hold off a year.
Wait, how old's your son?
He's like 10.
You're gonna watch it? You're gonna let him watch Rick and Morty at 11? With a scene where they like replace each other's bodies? That if I was 11-year-old and I saw that, I would not think anyone was real. Like, I would be like, what the fuck? You can just jump.
I'm like, okay, when he gets in middle school, okay, we can just go all out. You know, I mean, we watched Logan together, right? Like, and I'm just kind of like inching up to the point where it's, you know, he's just free to watch anything with me, kind of thing. But,
so wait, why is he allowed to watch Logan but not Rick and Morty? Like, where's the line drawn?
I'm not sure. I knew you were going to ask me that. I totally knew you were going to ask me that.
I'm not judging. I'm a parent too. I don't judge everything.
Because there's like a lot of pedophile humor in the show.
There is, yeah. There's a lot of much more adult themes in Rick and Morty.
There's a lot of
like every episode.
In that territory whatsoever. It was just it was violence. There wasn't any like sex shit going on, you know.
Yeah. The violence, I feel like, I mean, my son definitely has seen all kinds of things in video games. So at this point, the violence isn't that big of a deal for him. But each episode is a completely different crazy, I don't know, I wouldn't say moral dilemma, but there's some very adult theme going on in each one of Rick and Morty episodes, what makes it so great.
Well, speaking of the difference in the episodes themselves, it's like the show is crazy on different levels. It's funny for me. It's interesting. It's got a lot, you know, it's got a little bit of depth, you know, it's got a story that's developing and stuff. But just by the nature of the way that they've made it, you could potentially be watching different sets of Rick and Morty's as you're watching the show. Like, there's nothing saying right now that the Rick and Morty that you watch every episode is the same Rick and Morty. Now there are some episodes that continue on. Yeah. There's multiple dimensions and everything, and those have implications too. So, for instance, okay, so let's dig a little deep into it. Rick and Morty has infinite amount of universes, correct? So you know he's you know universe C172 or something like that. You know, right. But then you've got all these other universes that he can jump through portals and whatever. One of the Simpsons openers that happens has Rick and Morty show up in the Simpsons universe. Yeah. Okay. So in the Simpsons universe is technically connected to Rick and Morty. That's another universe, another alternate universe. Oh, wow. Also, if you think about it further, Family Guy has done a crossover with Simpsons. So because Family Guy has done a crossover with Simpsons and those two families have met up, it's vis-a-vis Family Guy is now part of the Rick and Morty universe too. Right? Technically.
Oh man, wow. I hope it destroys their universe because I fucking hate that show.
And he might, but the idea is that the way they formed it, it's like they can kind of plug and play themselves in all sorts of things and just say this is just another universe on the spectrum of universes.
As long as they get the rights to do it, yeah, they can pretty much do whatever they want.
Yeah, exactly. Which is pretty damn cool, and it's something that kind of blows my mind. There's even an episode. There's a Disney show called Gravity Falls. Apparently the producer of that show is friends with Justin Roiland, and they have correlating scenes actually between the two shows. So there's a scene in Gravity Falls where I think it's a cup, a pencil, and a notepad actually goes through a portal in Gravity Falls. And then there's a scene in one of the episodes of Rick and Morty where he's opening up portals, and through one of those portals flies out the same cup, pencil,
really?
and notebook. Yeah. There's little Easter eggs like that throughout through the entire show. So you were saying how each episode is so different and stuff. It's not even just that the episodes are just so different, which is cool. But each episode you could be potentially watching different sets of Rick and Morty themselves. And there's obviously a little bit more depth to it there. So it's pretty cool when you start really kind of digging deep into it and kind of getting into it.
Yeah, it's one of the things that they bring up I think it may get explained in season 3, but it happens throughout season 1 and 2. They keep destroying these realities and screwing them up. Like you just showed a screenshot from the one where he accidentally turns everyone into praying mantis monsters and then Cronenberg monsters, and it's just like horrifying. And then they're like, well, we totally screwed the pooch on this reality. Let's go to a different reality that we haven't screwed up yet. And they go right as like the versions of themselves there are dying. And so they horribly get killed, bury themselves, and just go on in this other reality. And then like Cronenberg, Rick and Morty, like find their way into the Cronenberg one that he's ruined. And like, oh, thank God we found another Cronenberg reality. So we're good. You know, the level of complexity in the science of what's happening is pretty insane.
Yeah, and that's like the best thing is the universe they went to is like a mirror image of the universe they left, right? So when they get there, it says like Cronenberg epidemic solved or something like that. So they actually come from the Cronenberg Rick and Morty's reality, like it's like they just switched places after they fucked up their worlds. It's fucking
so
insane.
In the episode when they had the uncertainty, I think it was like episode 1 or 2 of season 2, and then they they actually had they showed the parallel,
the time fracture.
Time fracture. How does that play into? I mean, was that just a time fracture in a single version or dimension of?
Yes, it's not necessarily okay. If you notice, there's never any time travel in the show.
There's no time travel.
In fact, there's a shelf in Rick's basement that has a box, like a cardboard box in it, and it has time travel on it. Okay, like he can't figure it out, or he doesn't want. It's maybe beneath him or whatever, but it's like it's in a box just on the shelf. Like maybe I'll figure this out one day. It's one of the few things that it looks like Rick hasn't figured out is time travel. So in that episode, it's not necessarily time travel. It's just time like tearing, and it's supposed to the impression that you get is it's supposed to have not affected time itself. It is just split it, so it's all in one moment. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But once the time splitting starts happening, it's like almost like time itself freezes. That's why those Time Lord people have to stop, show up and like fix shit because they fucked it all up. Which then they go and beat up Einstein, which then leads to
that was amazing.
That was amazing.
They're fourth dimensional creatures, so they exist on the time spectrum. And one of them's giving directions to the other one. He's like, no, it's like past the dinosaurs. No, before the dolphin people. So the guy comes. They come to like catch up. And like Einstein looks enough like Rick, right? So like, that's the asshole that screwed this up. And then they just wreck him. He's like, that'll teach you to mess with time. And he's like, no, I will mess with time.
I will mess with time. I will. Chan, you did watch the end of the episodes, right? Like after the credits.
No, actually. I didn't.
Every episode.
You missed like half of the season then.
Yeah,
really?
You missed like everything. Yep.
So you don't know Morty can turn into a car?
No, I saw that. Maybe some of them I did see. I just didn't see all.
Every
I didn't
episode
purposely.
has a cold closing with.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. Again.
Yeah, I love how that's the thing you go to. So you didn't know Morty could turn into a car?
I saw that part. Okay, so
totally true.
Because I think I had at least part of the seasons, just kind of back to back. So they kind of just ran into each other. So once it finished, the next one started. So I did watch through some of them.
Okay,
but
the
not all
best is Mr. Poopy Butthole going through like physical therapy, and she's like, is he okay? She's like, he needs time. He just wanted me to tell you that he's sorry you never had bad memories of him. And it was like the most fucking tragic
I missed
thing
that
ever.
One. What? Oh my god.
Okay. So that's my favorite thing about Rick and Morty is how characters can experience like the crushing sadness of existence in just like one moment on the show.
Yeah.
Just like that. Or like when the guy discovers, the scientist realizes that he's built a universe that's inside another universe that's inside another universe that's being used to power Rick's car. And he's like so sad because he dedicated his whole life to building his universe. He skipped his father's funeral, like he was too busy to do all this stuff because he was working on his universe. And he realizes how pointless it is and how far down, in the order of universes.
Yeah, the casting of Nathan Fielder for that character was the best part because he has that droll, sad voice.
It's Tina from Bob's Burgers. It's Tina from Bob's Burgers.
No, it's not
the same voice. Yeah, it is on the little scientist.
No,
sure.
Ella, do you really want to get into this with me? I'm right. I'm right.
You're likely right. You're likely right. Okay,
Nathan Fielder is from Nathan For You, which is also one of the greatest shows on Comedy Central.
Nathan
Fielder.
Hilarious. You probably are right.
And
I love Nathan For You.
Yeah, it's someone else that plays Tina. They definitely sound alike, but it's a different actor.
Really? Okay, I thought it was the same actor. My bad. Dan Mintz is the guy who does the voice for Tina. So
they do sound alike though. I totally get that.
That was
you're right.
That was one of my favorite episodes, by the way. That whole battery episode. I was like, how do you write that episode? That is freaking amazing.
Well, I wanted to get into this because, like,
so
as awesome as Justin Roiland is, this show would fucking suck if Dan Harmon wasn't involved.
Of course,
because not only is he super funny, he's a genius storyteller. Like, he created his own method for storytelling, which I follow, called the Story Circle. Let me try to find it. Story Circle. It essentially breaks down, like, the what do you call it? The hero's journey into something that's a lot more flexible for the writer, so you can be a little more creative. Here, I'll put it in the
Dan Harmon himself is fucking amazing. If anybody listening, if you guys ever get a chance to listen to Harmontown is podcast, or if you get a chance to watch the documentary, I believe it's by the same name. I think it's Harmontown, the documentary. Both of them are well worth the listen to.
I went to the first time I ever listened to Harmontown. I went to their last stop on the tour in San Francisco. And so they're like, oh, by the way, if you see a bunch of dudes with cameras, we're making a documentary. I don't think any of the footage from that particular episode is in the documentary. I could be wrong, though. But that was like my intro to it. I was like, oh, shit, Dan Harmon has a podcast? That sounds cool. Oh, shit, they're coming to San Francisco in like 3 weeks. I'll go. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I was just like, this is the best thing ever. I got to listen to every episode.
For those of you who don't really know what it is basically Dan Harmon, who also did Community. He was actually he started on that show and then was fired from the show and then was rehired for Community after it started kind of dipped a little bit. But he went on the road and he does like this live performance, this impromptu live performance. And it's always a little bit different. It's just basically he goes up on stage. He's got a co-host. I forget his name. And he's like, what do you want to do today? Oh, I want to talk about this, or I want to talk about that. And sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's really deep. Like he did a show where he got fucked up on moonshine and it was just a total asshole. And then he was an asshole to his girlfriend at the time and everything. And the next show, all he did was talk about that and their argument. And like, it's brutal, the things they go into in that argument, like how abusive he can be to her and stuff like that. So like, it's all over the place with Dan Harmon, but I've never felt more connected through just watching like a television show or watching a documentary than I have to Dan Harmon. Like the things that he says and the feelings he's expressing and stuff like that. I'm just like, it's me. You know, like that's how I felt watching it. He's an incredibly intricate and complex person, and it shows in the work that he does, especially I think in Rick and Morty. Just kind of the darkness and the lightheartedness all at once, you know. But anyways, I digress.
Yeah, and animation gives him like a much stronger playing field. Like Community is just this amazing, baffling thing to watch, but ultimately it's about some people at a community college. But you give him an entire universe where your cost is pretty low because the animation is not super expensive. You can go anywhere. Like you can just create entire new sets, entire new planets, entire new characters. Special effects and monsters become really cheap. Fight scenes become really cheap. So you're able to do all this crazy stuff, and you really like explore the science and philosophy behind a lot of high-minded topics in this show. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, just I think one of the things that drew me into the show the most is I felt like I watch a good amount of TV. I watch a good amount of movies. I play a lot of games, and you start to, ultimately everything's just a regurgitation of something else, right? Like Shakespeare, we've talked about this before on the show. Like Shakespeare came up with pretty much everything that, you can make a show about, love, whatever, the hero's journey, man versus nature, tragedy, all that good stuff. But this was the first show that when I watched through it, it did things that I had like never seen before. I've never seen a show where they ruin their reality and then go to a reality where they died, where those versions of themselves died, and then plug themselves into that role and like didn't skip a beat. Like when the first time I saw that, it was fucking insane. Like I never even thought about it. It honestly blew my mind. Like some of these episodes like straight up blow my fucking mind. And that was one of them, but multiples. And you keep like every time I watched a new episode, I was thinking, well, how many times can they come up with clever shit like this? There's a certain level of like, you can't do it, but it seemed like most episodes, not every single one, but like most episodes had some shit that I had never fucking seen before, like a theme park and inside someone's body. You know, like who thinks about that shit? Like who even goes there? And you can see, like Omeed said, you can see, Dan Harmon's mind at work on Community, and those episodes do get really fucking crazy sometimes. It's one of the reasons I actually don't like the show, because the setting and the direction don't seem to kind of add up to me in my mind. It's a great show, but it's not what I prefer. But yeah,
they have special episodes of Community, like the paintball episodes and stuff where, like it's always been. It started off with like a pilot that was pretty grounded in reality, but then as the show went on and got picked up, like they got crazier and crazier with it. And I don't know. I've watched Community episodes probably like 10 times each. It makes sense in their universe. It's just It's kind of like a Revenge of the Nerds type thing where it's like it's not quite reality, it's definitely bent reality.
Yeah, and I was just agreeing with Omeed. It's like the playground is expanded, and not only is expanded, but it's infinite, for him in this show. So.
Yeah, what I love is how like they move between things that are really easy and really hard. Like like in the universe episode, there's all this high-minded stuff about. I mean, it's based on simulation theory, which is a legitimate like scientific principle that's horrifying if you don't know about it. But then like in this picture, right, Rick is wearing like alien hat, right? He's created a universe and he's talking to the aliens in it. Why does he need to wear a costume, right? He already looks like an alien. But every single one of the scientists dons a disguise when they go into their own universe. It's moronic. And they're so petty, like they're arguing about what's a better name, miniverse or microverse or teenyverse. They get like super into it. And then there are whole episodes where you can tell that almost everything in them is completely improv while they're just smoking weed. And like the interdimensional cable episodes, they even comment on it, right? It's like, boy, television from other dimensions sure has a improvisational feel to it. And and you can just tell because like some of them they're like breaking, it's like, "Hi, Mr. Octopus Man, I'm an octopus." Like can't even say the sentences because they're so high. And then they just animated that stuff and it works just brilliantly.
Yeah, I love the two brothers. I do that all the time with my brother. We actually, me and my brother stream together and we play like H1Z1 or Battlegrounds now. And that's all we do to each other is like two brothers, because they have a strong bond, these two brothers, and they're going to fight, and they're cross-attacked by grandmothers in a Mexican armada with a tomato gun. And then I think at the end of that one, just, like I mean, at the end of that one.
He breaks at the end.
Yeah, he breaks at the end. He's like, two brothers.
I liked that one, and then I didn't really like the sequel episode.
I didn't like the sequel episode either.
I liked the episode itself, like the runner story with Jerry and his penis. I thought was great. But then they even said it, like, I don't know, we pretty much nailed it the first time. And it's like, it's true. Like a lot of those ones in the sequel were just like really blatantly improv and went nowhere. And it felt kind of hacky. Like they were just like, well, let's give them what they want. And they didn't really have anything. Like
the second one was definitely weaker. I mean, it had a few really funny things in it, but
it did. But it was like Octopus Man, where it's like that should have been cut completely.
That was
the personal space guy. The personal.
No, I like the personal space guy.
That guy was fine. I like that guy.
The first part of it where he goes, whoa, who's around me? That cracked me up. Then it kept going for way too long.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it just went a little bit too long. But the only one I really thought was like exceptionally funny, and for whatever reason, was the Jan Michael Vincents. It's like we don't have enough Jan Michael Vincents to cover this quadrant.
Yeah. Do you need to know who Jan Michael Vincent is for this to be relevant?
Just go with it.
But then you've got that like almost moronic weed humor, and then you have the other story that's going on with like the intergalactic Holocaust and genocides that are happening, and whatever his name is, Scripply Nipples, who is like the ultra Gandhi of the universe, who's dying and only Jerry's penis can save him, and all this stuff. And the first one was like that too, right? Because they get the VR glasses where they can see alternate realities where they have like a better life, and it just keeps getting darker and darker for them, while Rick and Morty are just sitting on the couch like enjoying watching ball fondlers and stuff like that.
This. Go ahead, Chan.
I was just gonna say, but it's a great frame, like you guys are talking about, right? It just gives them that that channel to just do whatever they want, because it's the TV or whatever, right? And it allows them for them, I guess, to run an even wider of a sandbox versus whatever premise they've already created. That's really smart, crazy smart.
Yeah.
I agree. Go ahead.
The thing that blows my mind about Rick and Morty is how dense, especially when you get into season 2, how dense the episodes are. Like, you'll be trying to remember, it's like, which episode was this, which episode was the one where there was that killer Crumbopulous Michael, and you explain his whole story and it takes like 10 minutes. And then it's like, oh, that was also the one with Roy and, the VR thing. And it was also the one with the fart and how like, and it's also the one with Gear World. And it's also the one with Jerry's daycare. And, like, all of that stuff is in 22 minutes somehow. And, when I worked on cartoons, and you sit there and you're like, okay, how do we stretch the minimum amount of content into 22 minutes?
Yeah. Sorry, you just like, a little bit.
No,
crap.
No,
we
it's
got
okay.
it. We got it.
You got your point, and it's an excellent point, because it is like that. Like, sometimes I have trouble finding certain episodes because I'm remembering a specific line of story for one of them, and I see like I'll be looking for the fart, I'll be looking for fart, and I'll see one of the other things happening in that episode, and I'll go, oh, this isn't that episode. And I'll move on to something else, and I'll be like, "Where the fuck is this damn thing?"
Right.
It's right though. It's really crazy how much they mix all together. I want to take a step back though, because I agree with Diction though that the second improvisational episode is probably the weakest episode, and one of the reasons I didn't like that is because I didn't feel like I gained much about the show by watching it. Like, we learned that Jerry's selfish, and we did learn about, Scruply Nooples or whatever the fuck his name is. Yeah. And that was cool, but it wasn't like the first one where the things that were happening around them were more relevant. Like, for instance, Summer, you kind of get into Summer's psyche as being like an unwanted child and spoiling her parents' dreams and stuff, or what she thought were her parents' dreams. And that's when Morty has to get that, pull her aside and say, "That's my corpse out there. Like, I'm not even your real brother, your original brother." And she's like, "You're not my brother." And he's like, "Yeah, but I'm one you can trust, like, I'm a Morty you can trust." And then and also we learn about Jerry and Beth's relationship, which is a big part of the show, actually. They're kind of back and forth. Are we going to get divorced? Are we not going to get divorced, kind of thing. And Rick's right in the middle of that too, causing so much tension between these two people who obviously probably shouldn't be together. But then at the end, you realize that even if they had gone on these other paths or followed their dreams, that ultimately they wanted to be together. So what it told you was that, like, these people do want to be with each other, even through success, even if they have followed their dreams and all that stuff. So you got a lot more out of it. But the second one, I don't know. It was all right, but I just didn't feel like it had that kind of depth, right, or kept with the plot at all. I'm curious, Chan, what episode did you like the least?
The least?
Yeah, like if you could pull out an episode, you were just like, man, anyone that you'd like felt like you were just like,
That's
if you
tough.
like them all, that's a good answer too. I mean, if you just don't have anything bad to say.
Man, they're all like really strong. I mean, it might be like one of the first ones just because I was still trying to get acclimated to the show. But if I were to go back and watch it again, it probably wouldn't be the same for me. You know what I mean? So off the top of my head, which one would be the worst? Man, I can't. It doesn't stand out. There's usually like one. Like when I'm watching series, there's usually one that's really easy to pick out. But I can't say I can pick one out right now.
I just pulled up the list for that reason exactly, and I would say that the Anatomy Park episode is pretty weak for kind of the same reason that Ello is saying
which one was the Anatomy Park?
Exactly.
Oh, the amusement park one.
It's the one where it's like Christmas, and I think somebody's parents are coming over. Jerry's parents are coming, and they're in some weird, poly relationship now. And, Morty has to go into the body and see this weird park, but it doesn't really advance any of the plot or the characters very much.
Yeah, it's a fun throwaway episode that really doesn't connect to the whole arc of the show, which is fine. Like they can do that. Cool.
I think the one, so I think the one that might be the weakest for me or just generally are the ones that have, what's the mom? What's her name again? The mother's name? Beth. Yeah. When Beth's doing horse stuff, like Just any
that
of those.
That sounds so wrong out of context.
Like the operation, like the one where she's operating on the, and the hunters, and there's the lawyer and the hunter, and that episode is all right. I mean, it's just like
that's also the episode where the uncertainty is happening. And there's this like completely epic other plot
that's
happening.
True, but I love the uncertainty.
And that
part,
one is so
that doesn't.
Yeah, you're right. The horse part is not great at all.
Yeah, so I can pick parts of the plot, maybe not entire episodes, but it's just like the reason I don't like the horse part is because it's just too normal. Like everything else is so complex and creative, and then you just have like her coworker who's trying to seduce her, and it's just like, I've seen this before. You know what I mean? Like this type of thing. And I don't know, all of that part is just a little too just been there, done that type of content, where everything else in the series is so just new and just makes you think a lot more. So that's the only criticism I would say.
There's what do you guys think? And this is kind of everybody. What do you guys think of some of the darker humor, or even the darkest humor? Like I watched through obviously a ton of times, like I've said, and Cora's been there with me for a lot of them. And there's one episode that she just cannot watch. Like she can't watch, she won't watch. She like will walk out of the room if it's on or whatever. And it's the jelly bean, the one where they go on the adventure and stuff. But it's the one where Morty almost gets
really fucking dark, man.
Oh, when he gets
the one where the jelly bean almost rapes Morty. Like what do you guys think about the level of grit that they go, like how dark the humor gets? Do you guys like it, dislike it? You think it's appropriate?
I mean, it's like the way they presented it, it wasn't funny.
No,
like,
it wasn't funny
if
at
you
all.
laugh at that, then you're a bad person. That part wasn't funny. Him getting his comeuppance, that part was funny, and that part I liked. But like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like one of those people who's just not phased very easily by stuff like that. Like I understand it's wrong and it's bad, and like it can really trigger people. But like I wasn't comfortable watching it. Like both or however many times I watched it. But I didn't think that it was. I didn't think it was in bad taste. I want to say I didn't think it was in bad taste. Because it serviced the story. It was like, like Morty was trying to show Rick up on his adventures, and then it turns horribly wrong for him. And he's like, you know what? I'm done. You're right.
You're right.
Like I should stop trying to like fucking pick at these straws and just go with the flow. And like it didn't work out for him at all.
It works with just, it's kind of weird. There's two things about it for me. For one, I think it's necessary for them to show that they're willing to go anywhere. Just in terms of the show and the writing and where the plot lines go. And then secondly, I think it develops Morty's character a little bit more, because he's always this crazy, cautious, very, afraid, I guess you could say, in a lot of instances.
Timid.
Right? Timid. Mm-hmm. And, there's some parts where there's like this hidden, like the whole Purge episode, which was awesome. But for the most part, he is this kind of cautious, and most of the time, Rick's right. Like there's no reason for him to be like that. But in that particular instance, there was a situation where he is rightfully scared, and it is a very crazy, scary moment. So I don't know. For that, there's a little bit of validation there. It actually does develop his character a bit more. But again, I think it's just important for them to even establish how far they'll go.
Yeah. I love when they get that dark. Mm-hmm. That darkness, it really shows that nothing is off limits. Yeah. And that episode gets darker. I mean, that rape scene is horrifying. Like, and it's child molestation and rape. Like, it's horrifying. Yeah. But then later, at the end of the episode, people have found out that guy was just a horrible ruler and he was a child molester and all this stuff. They find these pictures and they burn them and they say, no, the idea of Jelly Bean is better than, will do more for our society than the man he was. And you're just like, oh my God, like how many times has that happened in our society?
I know, right?
And you're just like, wow.
Well, I mean, it just happened with Bill O'Reilly. Like, okay, we'll tolerate this for 15 years, but that's it.
Right. That's a good point.
Really, dude? Like, fucking really, man?
Yeah.
It's I think out of all the scenes, I think the rape scene there was one where it's like it's like you said, like it's funny later, but like in the moment, I remember watching that and being like, this was on TV. Like, holy shit! Like that is fucking crazy dark. And Cora can't even. She can't even watch that scene. Like she's just like, I'm out, man.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know how you make, like, and I would guess if was the writer's room. They're sitting around going, I don't know how you make this funny. A child is about to get raped. Like, that scene can't be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did it.
Chan, what did you laugh? Chan,
I didn't laugh. There's no way.
Son of a bitch.
No,
I didn't
laugh.
Son of a bitch,
God.
you laughed.
I did not. I didn't laugh at that scene. But
why are you giggling?
they could have gone even further with it. That's what's crazy, So I guess, they did draw a limit at some point, right? But it was easily the darkest scene. I can't.
Yeah, I know that's not what Aberdolf Linkler stood for.
I know, right?
It's definitely not what he died for. So
yeah.
Oh man. So was there any episode that you guys thought just stood out like as just like your absolute favorite episode? Like this is just, the epitome of funny. Because I can name one real quick, and it's the
battery one, definitely.
The battery one for you? See, I really like the Krabopolis Michael one. Like that episode is like insanely funny for me. The video game, Roy the video game, that scene fucking blew my mind.
Game is really awesome.
It made me scared of the future of video games, okay? And then it made me scared about my reality. Have you ever heard these like theorists, like the we're in a video game theorists, everything kind of comes down to electricity and like even us, like when it gets down to brain impulses and stuff like that, it's just, electricity, and there's a whole fucking theory that we're just in a giant computer simulation. And whenever I watch that,
it's called simulation theory.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. You had mentioned it earlier.
Yeah. Right. Those two episodes both deal with it. Mm-hmm. And they are, in my opinion, the two strongest episodes by far. The quantity of insanely awesome stuff in Morty Night Run, which is the name of the Krabopolis Michael episode, and they do these little details too. Like Krabopolis Michael is just this like throwaway character who's an assassin who's just there to give Rick money to go play, video games. But when he goes to do his assassination, the first scene is he's like on top of the building praying, and he's got a picture of like his wife in a locket or someone in a locket, and like very clearly doing some ritual, and you're just like, what the hell was that? And then he's like, oh boy, here I go kill it again, and then he just like murders 30 people. You're like, who is this person? Like, what is driving him?
Yeah, it's not only that, but what's really cool is he's their species too. He's like one of the only he may even be the only one of their species that isn't part of like the overall like universal or galaxy government, that I forget what they're called right now. But he's like one of the ones that are like, so it makes him even more interesting to me that he's like turned against his kind or willing to turn against his kind. I mean, he'll kill puppies, children, old people. He doesn't care. He just loves killing. Like it's like this character. It's funny too, like the concept of the character, even though he is like a brief stint, is that he just absolutely loves killing. Like that's just it. Like it's his passion. Like his passion is, it's not even about the money. He gets paid, but it's like that's what he's just born to do. It's fucking ridiculous.
The range of humor in that episode too, right? Like, he gives Morty a card, and then the whole episode is about choices Morty makes, right? And the fact that Morty decides to free that fart ends up killing thousands of people and almost destroys their reality. But he makes the decision like to go do that, and he's following Krabopolis Michael by the GPS on his business card, and so he's put that into the ship, and the ship crashes onto Krabopolis Michael and kills him. And the GPS is like, you have arrived at your destination. Your destination is beneath you. And you're like, oh God, like what just happened? Like just that total crap joke, but right in the middle of all that real heavy stuff.
Yeah. What do you got? Okay, so here's sorry, I'm all full of questions because I love asking people certain things about the show after they've done watching it. Like I've done this systematically for 20 of my friends now. Right. Where do you guys think the show is going? This is a delicate question because it's kind of weird for the show itself, like spoiler alert itself, because we didn't tack on season 3, episode 1 to this portion of the show, and I don't
watch it.
Oh, you haven't watched it yet? Okay. Well, this is probably better than that you hadn't than for this question. But where do you guys think? What's the end game of the show? What's going to be the point? Does anybody have any theories or?
Well, I don't think there is a point. It's a crushing, depressing, existentialist thing. I will go on record and say I believe that Rick and Morty are the same person.
Wow. You think they're the same person? See, I haven't heard that. See, this is why I love it. Okay, why do you think they're the same person?
If you watch in the first of all, they're very similar. They're voiced by the same person. They both have the same stuttering, stammering style of talking. There are several times in the first episode where Rick mentions that Morty's a lot like him. Jerry and Beth are just letting Rick take this kid off on all these horrifying adventures, even though they kind of know how bad they are. And he says a few things. Rick says at one point, he's like, Morty is like me. He doesn't need to be in school. He is sort of destined for something better. And then, there's like Bird Person has a picture of Rick holding up Morty when he's a baby. And, Rick is like, well, where did this come from? And, they don't have time to explain it because they're in the middle of, show me what you got time. But I don't know. And it definitely might not be a thing, but there are enough links that I feel like there's a seed there. The fact that Mortys are used to hide Rick, because he's like the opposite of him. And it feels to me like Rick is taking Morty along on this adventure. And on this adventure, Morty is learning these horrifying lessons that Rick already knows as he becomes Rick. Oh, and when they're in the uncertainty thing, he's like, go on, be better than me, Morty. Like, so I don't know. There's a few little things. So.
But how do you explain that his daughter gave birth to Morty?
I mean,
have we seen that happen?
That's true. I mean, in a show like I get what you're saying, Diction, but
if that's the twist, and then they end late game, they're like, oh, by the way, Morty, you're adopted. Worst show ever. That's like such a fucking shitty cop out, and I hate that. Shit.
What if one of them
is? I'm gonna be done with the show forever.
No, I agree. But don't you think though that in a show like this, especially, that they will be able to explain why Beth maybe doesn't remember, or they could do so many ways of making Beth. I mean, they could have even implant if they can go into somebody's mind to change the grades that Morty's getting in school. I'm sure Rick could have come up with a way to implant a memory of her actually giving birth to
but as
Morty.
long as they start alluding to that soon and don't just tack it onto the last episode of the series.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll play along, but that's
what if three of them are just those jelly alien guys? They end up just shitting. It's only Rick and Morty that are only the real people. Yeah. That's what ends up happening.
I changed my answer. My favorite episode is the parasites in the house.
That was a good one.
It was a total riff on the clip show thing, which they did that on Community in season 5, I think, where they had a clip show episode, but it was all shit that's never been on the show before, like them going to an old west. Like all this crazy shit that never actually happened on the show. And so I dug that episode a lot because I hate clip shows. I remember having to watch them on fucking Scrubs and Friends and shit. It's like, it's the worst. It's like when the writers of a show are taking a weekend off. They're like, all right, we'll just like write like 3 scenes and connect them with clips from previous episodes.
Well, it's contractually obligated in the deals because the network is trying to get as many shows as possible of a series for as little money as possible. So as soon as, I don't know who invented the clip show, but as soon as it became a thing, they would just tack that on every couple of years because it's super easy content.
It's true.
There's something kind of cool to mention about this too, that episode specifically, the one that's actually up right now. It's the episode after Morty Night Run. And there's a scene in Morty Night Run at the end where Rick is loading in stuff into the flying saucer that he built, the garage ship. And you actually see the parasite in the things that he's putting in there. So you actually learn how all that even came to be. It's actually Rick brought it back from their adventure with Fart. So something, a little tidbit, from the side. But I think if you look for it, it's a little green or a little pink worm thing and like the shit that he's holding. Anyways, I think this is my theory for the show. Right now, my official theory is that it will come down to Rick versus Morty. Like it's going to come down to Rick is gonna or Morty's gonna get tired of being dragged along to all these things and everything that he's being put through and all that stuff. He does this all for Rick, and all Rick cares about, it seems like, is himself. And Rick's this ultra genius, right? Who has pretty much been through everything. He's super smart. So when these things are happening, it's like he almost doesn't feel the same, like because he's already been through all this stuff. He's a super genius. He doesn't see this the way that like Morty does. It's like he doesn't have any qualms jumping into another reality. We don't know how many realities, you know, Rick has inhabited over, you know, the course of his life, really. You know, we don't know much about his wife, how Beth came about. You know, we've never even mentioned, they mentioned her, but we've never seen her before. But I think what it's going to come down to, and this is my prediction, this is a very specific prediction, but I think that the Morty that we see going through the show is the same Morty that tries to take down the Ricks at the end of season 1. The one that has the little cord in his eye.
The eye patch,
yes.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I think at some point Morty learns and develops time travel. And the reason I say that is because not only is it applicable for the show, you know, just like for the character itself, but also because Rick is constantly saying how Morty isn't smart. Rick is the smartest. Rick is a super genius. It would just be so sweet to have Morty figure out something or develop something that Rick never could. Time travel, right? And he uses this as the one thing that he could to stop Rick. And he tries by doing what we see in the episode. And that's just the way that I think it's going, is just that Rick and Morty have this bond. It's all fun and adventures for a couple of seasons. I think over the next couple of seasons, we're going to start to see those two kind of tear apart. And we're going to see the aftermath and the fallout from that. I think it's going to come down to those two against each other. So it's funny because like Omeed has the theory that they're the same person. I think that they're going to battle each other. You know, like it's going to be like a.
I think those could go together really easily.
They
right?
could
go.
Yeah.
As soon as Rick feels like he's taught everything Morty he needs to know to be a better version of him, what does it matter if Morty kills him? And, you know, maybe that's sort of the last step in his, you know, becoming Rick. Maybe Rick already did this to previous Rick, you know, like it could go really dark in so many ways. But yeah, I mean, they're going to come into conflict. They constantly come into conflict, right? And Rick a lot of times just lets it go. And, you know, like the whole fart episode, you know, Rick's like, hey, can we just play video games? Like, this would be so much fun. He's like, no, we got to stop one guy from killing some guy. He's like, all right, well, let's see how this goes. And, you know, he just lets it go to the again. Yeah, he lets it go to the logical conclusion, even though like thousands of people die. And, you know, Rick has to like pull that guy, like Gearhead's nuts off and stuff him in his face. Like, I mean, horrible things happen in that episode so that Morty can learn lessons. Whereas like, I feel like if Rick was really an authoritarian who didn't give a shit about Morty, he would just say, no, just play the game again. Like, we are not going anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, you know, then there's the argument that maybe at Rick's level of things that he's been through, you know, there's boredom to it, you know, at some point. Maybe he's just rolling with the punches simply because, you know, he's played, you know, Roy enough that he's got no social security number for Roy. You know, like you know, maybe, you know, you might want to spend an afternoon at Blitz and Chits, but you know, also the intrigue of, all right, well, this could be something, you know, totally whatever. I'm kind of bored. And I know a lot of people in the chat are saying that you know, the Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon said they would never go into time travel, but that would just make even more sense. What show guy is going to be like, yeah, we'll definitely have this, you know, like who would give away that ending, you know? So I don't know. It's just something I've thought about.
It could be something that's in between, like Omeed said. It could be something that's in between where maybe Rick is something that Morty has manifested or he's created, because it's that patch Morty. Every time we go back to that episode, which actually it's one of the best episodes in my opinion too. When we go back to that episode, like you have this like mad genius Morty, and it kind of seeds. It's something that stays in my mind all the time, and the fact that Morty, maybe he is a mad genius and maybe he's created Rick, and you know, he's smarter than everybody else on the show and his family, so he's able to create Rick in a way that, or maybe even manipulate his family's minds or whatever in a way that they think that Rick is, you know, his grandfather, right, and Beth's father, because he just entered into the show out of nowhere in the very beginning, right? It's like, oh, we just recently found your father or whatever, and so I think the beginnings outside the Birdman, I guess, having that picture, there's really no sense of how Rick, you know, any history of Rick and Beth and all of that too. So I don't know. Well, maybe a theory
in that
is
episode, though. In that episode, they go through Rick's mind, and as they're, you know, he says, "I'm going to download the contents of your mind," and he starts thinking about Morty, and that you see pictures of Morty as a little kid in those flashbacks, remembrance too. I believe that they were in those pictures, but yeah, I get what you're saying. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it could be in the end, and then it could lead to just what you were saying. Like they battle. Morty gets to the point where he's, he doesn't need Rick, or he doesn't need this manifestation of Rick to, help him grow or help push him to where he's trying to get himself. And they may have that encounter in the end where, Morty just kind of moves on and, kills Rick or something like that.
The origin of the show too is that it was originally just based on Back to the Future. It was Doc and Marty, right? Rick and Morty. Because Justin Roiland was very well known before Rick and Morty for sort of being on the indie animation scene, where the animation community is really tight. Like everybody knows everybody's worked together. So they just have basically hackathons or jams where they put out shows for themselves. And he was Justin Roiland was known for having a show called, I think it was called Too Many Cosbys or something like that, where somebody had created a cloning machine and used it to clone Bill Cosby over and over, and then all the Bill Cosbys, I think, started a detective agency or something, something weird.
A detective agency.
Oh my god!
Detective agency.
There are episodes of it on YouTube, and it's not amazing, but it's real funny. And there are also episodes of Doc and Marty, and they're very similar looking to Rick and Morty. But that is how the two characters developed. And then Dan Harmon got into the mix because when he got kicked off of Community, he didn't have anything to do for a while. It's tooling around. He knows those guys because he's into animation. And he's like, what if we took Doc and Marty and we blew that out and we did a show where you have alternate realities and you have all this ability to do crazy stuff. And I think one of the main reasons they don't want to touch time travel is once you have time travel involved, right, you start getting into all these questions about okay, well, why didn't Morty just go back and kill, the bad guy's father on the toilet? Why didn't this happen? Why don't they just correct everything? And it becomes just this giant clusterfuck. There's, as probably Diction knows better than anyone, there are very few movies that have done time travel with any sort of, reasonable plausibility.
The only one I can think of is Primer, and even that one is probably got flaws.
I like Looper too.
Looper was pretty good too.
Yeah, Looper it's a very limited set of time travel stuff in it, so it works. But once you go too far down the path of time travel, it gets really esoteric and boring because it's oh well, why don't I just go back to the origin of this federation and kill the guy who thought of it? Why don't I kill that guy's great grandfather? There's so much of that it's not compelling. I don't understand in Terminator. Why don't they just send more Terminators? The Terminator failed. Send 30 Terminators.
Yeah, it's 5 more Terminators. That's all we need.
Send a Terminator to figure out when Sarah Connor's on the toilet, and then let's send 10 Terminators to blow up the bathroom.
Or better yet, send 10 Michael Vincent. Why would you send one Terminator when you can send one Jan Michael Vincent?
Well, they're all busy defending that quadrant.
Yeah, they don't have enough Jan Michael Vincents to spread around. No, it's, and I agree. I fucking hate time travel. I hate time travel. I do agree that, Loop, there are some small, instances where I'm okay with it. But not to spoil anything. There is a certain television show that I really liked until time travel was involved. And I don't know.
Yeah. First episode.
First episode.
It was real great until they started talking.
But no, I do find it as a weak story element. I guess what kind of I'm hoping for is that it's in my theory is that it's a very limited, it's the first baby steps into time travel and limited, and so it would answer this question. But I agree, there's too much paradox that happens as well, that when it comes to involve that. But taking a step back, to the evil Morty or the mass, the intelligent Morty. What do you guys think about the music? The music in the show, I thought was fucking stellar. And that song that plays when he sort of escapes, I believe it's called Damaged Coda or something like that. Oh. And it's the
yeah.
That song is fucking brilliant. Have you ever just listened to the song?
It's on my Spotify.
Song. Yeah, this show has like really, really great music that you've never heard of before, but is really catchy and really strong in the scenes. It's not something you really think about with the show either, the music, but even the one where he replaces himself in the Rick Potion number 9 or whatever it is. Even the song at the end of that when Morty's walking around and he's in a daze of disbelief and he's just fucked in his head and all that stuff. There's a lot of really good scenes of the music. What do you guys think of the music?
Yeah, like season 2 ends with "Hurt" by 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah, that's a great
song. As Rick is like coming to terms with the fact that this is the best way to serve everybody and deal with his best friend just getting murdered is to turn himself in and save his family. Or the breakup scene with Unity when he comes home and Beth and Jerry are like expecting this big fight with him over not having space aids in the basement dungeon, and he's so sad from the breakup that I don't know the name of that song, but it's like the perfect sort of breakup-y song that plays during that real sad montage where he like with that little singing monster thing. I don't even know how to explain that.
But it seems like they use music to emphasize serious moments or like true depth of character, it seems like that's what they reserve it for.
No, I think they use it all. I mean, come on, there's the Tony scene and the freaking the Rick song. Talking about the Tony. Okay, come on. I mean, those are great moments too. Come on.
But almost every single like serious moment at the end that like one of those like mind blowing moments has kind of that slower kind of stuff. Yeah, I agree with you. It's got get Swifty in here,
overall
poop on the floor.
Overall, they use music in a very smart and very very good timing with the music too. I still think the intro video is a little odd. I don't know about you guys. But
really? I like it.
3 plus 3 equals 6. What more do you want, man? Like it goes across the screen. It's mathematically correct. Like it's science, man.
I know it's science. It's just I mean. I've come to, it's the Rick and Morty intro music at this point for me, but I don't know. It's still a little bit odd for me. I don't know why. There's something a little bit strange to me about it.
It's a throwback intro to like, what do you call it? Johnny Quest and shows like that from the past.
Okay, yeah. Johnny
Quest.
Just
a bunch of clips of shit that probably is not going to be in the show ever, but it's like it shows you what it's all about.
Yeah.
You're talking about the music specifically, though,
yeah, the music specifically. I mean, the intro is cool.
Music with the theremin. That's so good.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah. Exactly.
It's all like the Twilight Zone, all old school sci-fi. It's all just kind of a reach back to those. It's funny, Chan, because it's curious that you don't like the intro music because I've never heard anybody dislike it.
I mean, it's not that I dislike it. I think it's just talking about the music. It's probably the oddest part for me, just in terms of the music. It's not that I don't like it. I mean, I think it's fine. It's just,
why do you hate it?
Why are you dead inside?
Oh, my dead inside. I mean, you compare that to, this is obviously totally different, but compared to like the BoJack intro, right? Which is totally satirical and funny and in line, I guess, with what the show is. And this one's, scientific and it is in line that aspect of it. But that's the only part of it that's in line with it, is just that kind of science-y feel to it. And
yeah, I think too, when you look at shows like a show like Rick and Morty, it's almost amazing that it succeeded because it's so weird.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get into. Like other shows like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, same thing. Like I've tried so many times, and it's a fun game. When you meet somebody from another country that's never heard about Aqua Teen Hunger Force, try to explain the show to them. It's almost impossible.
Right.
But when you're pitching this stuff and you're talking to network executives who are not always like super creative people, like you have to put it into contexts that they understand, and you also have to give people like the rule of thumb is you have 30 seconds from when somebody turns on the channel to get them or they're gone. So you have to give them something that they feel like they understand. And if you ask me what Rick and Morty is in a 10-second pitch, it's a combination of the Twilight Zone, sci-fi adventures, Johnny Quest, all of that stuff. So having the intro kind of show that is really, really smart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was something that I wanted to bring up, and now I can't remember what I was going to say. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, and Goodbye Moon Men is my favorite song in that. It's so
Anytime
sad.
you get Jermaine Clement to fucking sing something, it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
He has like the second best song in Moana. Like,
yeah, I was just about to say, I was about to bring up Moana. Moana is it's just like
song, dude.
It's like like secret Flight of the Conchords songs. It's like the secret tapes. Like anytime he does a song, because they're all kind of in the same style, you know, and they're brilliant every time. Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't even mention the Moonmen song when we were talking about the music, because
that's another one of those, like, it's super sad. Like, listen to the lyrics.
Yeah,
it's a song really about how the like fart people, you know, met these moon men who seem perfectly pleasant and adorable in the little music video, and they just kill them because the moon men can't have things the way they want them. This is reality. Sorry. and it's this like super sweet song. We're like, oh, this is so nice. And you're like, oh my God, what are they singing about?
Right.
The world can be one together, cosmos without hatred. It's so funny for those of you who are just listening to it. We actually have some pictures on rotation that are going by, and I've never seen this hamburger one ever. It's never seen this.
It's from a Hardee's commercial.
Is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's why. That's
like
why
a real Hardee's commercial.
Yeah.
Or Carl's Jr., depending which coast you're on.
Yeah, we're Hardee's down here.
Yeah, it's Hardee's.
Yep.
That's so funny. I've never seen that at all.
It's pretty fun. Yeah, it's very Rick and Morty. Like, Morty something about hamburgers, and then like all these hamburgers start coming in, and you know Rick's like, or Morty's asleep, and he's like, "What the hell is happening?" And then the hamburgers are like dancing and stuff. You know,
typical Rick and Morty shit.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 sellout.
We didn't mention at the beginning of the show that we can allow callers onto the show if anybody wants to jump on the show, you can. Talk to Monkey Overlord if you guys want to ask a question or have a comment or just anything really. Please just let Monkey Overlord know, and he'll get you in a call with us, and you guys can be live on the show. It can be honestly anything related to Rick and Morty. So don't feel shy if nobody wants to jump on, that's cool too. But we make that available to you guys.
Yep, on Discord.
Throw it out there.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really love. So season 3, for people who didn't notice, the first episode came out on April Fool's Day. Just nobody knew. It wasn't announced. Cartoon Network is like 10 out of 10 at April Fool's jokes. That's where I saw The Room for the first time. And you know, like the articles about it were, you know, it's April Fool's Day. You don't believe anything on the internet. And they're like, yeah, you can watch Rick and Morty here. I was totally expecting to get Rickrolled. Go. And it was actually just streaming. And so Rick and Morty was like, it had like 2 or 3 of the top trends on Twitter that day. And one of the random things that happens in that episode is he talks about this like chicken nugget sauce that McDonald's used to have. Szechuan sauce, and how good it is. And Szechuan sauce started trending. McDonald's started trending.
Oh, wow.
Everybody started talking about this. And he's like, I don't care if it takes 9 seasons for us to get this sauce. We are going to be on the air to get this damn sauce. You know that people at McDonald's have already had meetings about this. Like, how are we going to deal with it? Are we going to bring this sauce back? Should we make a deal with Cartoon Network? Like, all of that is almost certainly happening. And the power of this show to have done an April Fool's joke that ended with like McDonald's potentially doing a marketing campaign is insane.
Yeah, and I like to believe that was the end goal all along. like Dan Harmon and Justin Rowan smoked a bunch of weed, and they just sat down and they're like, we're 2 creative, smart guys. How are we going to bring back this sauce? And so they're like, we can create this show. We can get a popularity. We can rise in power, and then we can put McDonald's in a position where they look like assholes if they don't. You know, it's funny too. Watching the popularity of Rick and Morty over the years. You know, I was kind of late to the game when I jumped into it back. I mean, I had a whole season to watch the first season when I saw it, and I felt like I was totally out of left field suggesting it to people. I was on stream saying, you guys got to check this out. You know, I don't even remember who got me into it. I believe it was Bruce Lee and Precious Kitten, Jared and Jelly. Jared and Kelly. We call them Jelly.
Real friends in real life. You can't remember their names.
Yeah, but no. We called them Jelly. We called them Jelly because it's Jared and Kelly. So yeah, Jelly.
Okay.
We're talking about both of them. But I realize that you guys aren't going to understand what fucking jelly is, like. But anyways, but it's fun. It's been fun seeing how popular and how widespread the damn thing has gotten over. It's like a plague or something. Like at first it was like nobody was infected, and now like a shit ton of people are infected, to the point, to Omeed's point, that now we've got McDonald's, and they did tweet about it. They did tweet at them.
You ever watch Binging with Babish on YouTube?
No.
Everyone needs to like sub to his channel. What he does is he will take like a recipe from a movie or a TV show, and he'll recreate it the way he thinks that it's supposed to be made. And so for that, he did 3 versions of Szechuan sauce, like one that was like given to him by a viewer, and then one that like he thought it should be, and then the one that he thought it was McDonald's, which is he just took the sweet and sour sauce and their tangy barbecue sauce and mixed it together. And he's like, "Yep, that's what I remember tasting like." Actually,
this sounds like this sounds like P.F. Chang's all of a sudden. They make sauce in front of you. I wonder if McDonald's actually did work something out, because that's lucky as shit if they didn't.
They've got to.
You never know. I mean,
you're right. You're right.
I really don't think that. I don't think that there's anything premeditated there.
Yeah.
I think that it's
reactionary.
I think that it's an experiment on, can we get this to happen, from Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland. Because they did it before. They did it with Nintendo in one of the episodes, where he's talking about like, guys, we all got to go get Nintendos because
Nintendo, give me free Nintendo games.
Yeah, at the end he's like, Nintendo, give me free stuff. Like, he just looks right into the camera. So I think they're playing around with that kind of thing, just to see sort of the level of interest. And another thing, to Ello's point about how pervasive this show is, Rick and Morty has won a Peabody Award, which is like normally, I think, sort of a journalism, like an integrity in science or something kind of award.
Yeah,
that's like a very big deal, and certainly I would guess not something a cartoon wins very often.
What? So what is the Peabody Award? Like what like typically who would they? Let's look it up. Yeah, let's Google that shit. It's the power of the internet at our fingertips. It sure beats the Dewey Decimal System, that's for sure, at your local library.
Oh, it's about television, and it's about quality rather than popularity. Yeah, but I mean, it's still like, it's a fairly prestigious award for a cartoon to win, and I think a lot of that comes down to the level of complexity. You can view this as an educational show in a lot of ways, because like if you go read about simulation theory and then watch that episode about the universes again, it's
the whole thing about Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like that I've read a lot about that. It's a really fascinating theory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much scientifically accurate stuff in the show. I mean, just the parallel universes is based on a theory. Everything about the show has like grounding in something, and they kind of make fun of it, they kind of twist it around a little bit, but you can learn a lot by watching the show.
Mm-hmm. Those Dan Harmon one, I think he either won or was nominated for, like, it's like a Peabody Award, but it's for like sci-fi, for like science, for that episode of Community with the multiple timelines where they're ordering the pizza at the apartment, and then he flicks up a dice. And there's 6 sides, and so it shows each different timeline for whatever the dice roll is. And apparently that was like because it was like super accurate for that theory of like once you make a decision, it splits off into different, like, equally. It's the Schrodinger's cat. Like, it could go this way or that way, and maybe it does go this way and it does go that way, but you'll only get to experience one timeline.
The Hugo Awards, right? And is that the butterfly effect? The thing where every change shards things off.
Well, it's like a mix of that and the Schrodinger's cat, where the cat is either dead or it's not. It can equally be both.
Yeah, until somebody
once you open the box, then you created that
sure.
timeline where it is or it isn't.
Right.
You guys are blowing my mind right
now. Cool shit, dude. It's really interesting.
The Aura King and Monkey actually want to call in, so let's take the Aura King first, and then we'll take Monkey. Yo, Aura King, what's up?
Not much. What's up with you guys?
Just talking Rick and Morty.
Yeah, you're like our unofficial 4th member of the show, man.
Wait, there's 5 people here though.
No. But I mean, but you've called in several times, so you're like a regular cast member. This show, you would think it's just us 3, and then we have a special guest on. It's actually 4 of us, and Omeed's the special guest today. Anyway,
you're like the person watching social media for us, and then we have on at the end of the show, just like on these radio shows typically, right? Yeah. So you got a question or anything you want to add to the discussion?
Yeah. One thing I want to ask, it's just not just like you. Everyone likes these shows for on and off. I'm just curious, what makes a show very attractive to the audience? Like, what do you think draws people in that they like it so much? I haven't really seen much of it, but I was curious of your opinions.
Of shows in general, or this show in particular, you mean?
Or shows like this, that just get everyone's attention, that are unique.
I personally, what draws me, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe Omeed can touch on it a little bit because he's actually, produced television show or cartoons before. But for me, with this show specifically, the reason I like it is just because it's so different. Like, I like that it doesn't fall in the. You get tired of watching the same shit over and over, just told differently. And within a very safe realm, it's usually Earth or maybe even less than that, unless you're getting to sci-fi, and even then it's pretty tame. This is so far reaching, and it's so weird and out there that just simply based on its uniqueness, it makes it interesting to me personally.
I like it for most of the same reasons I like the Venture Brothers. Although, full disclosure, I think the Venture Brothers is a superior show in every way, but the reason I like it is because it's telling a cohesive story, and it's got its own universe that it builds with characters that come in and out. So it gives you a reason to go back and rewatch stuff to pick out these little bits of story elements that exist that you can see later on, And so that's why I hate shows I don't hate The Simpsons, but I hate that format where it's every episode's self-contained, and it's just one 20-minute story, and then it basically time reverses in the next episode, and everything from that last episode doesn't exist, doesn't happen. Same with Family Guy. I fucking can't stand that. All of Seth MacFarlane's show I can't stand. I like having a story. I don't like these little self-contained episodes that are just there to be kind of funny, and then after that, especially if it's a long-running TV show, Aqua Teen Hunger Force can get away with it because it's so fucking batshit crazy. Those shows, and they're 11 minutes long, so I feel like they're not wasting my time. It's okay, 10 minutes in, all right, it's done. Cool, that was funny. All right, next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think relatability is a really big deal. If you look at generally sitcoms or things like that, the sort of rule of thumb on how to create a sitcom from, sort of the Marcy Carsey kind of people is take a normal situation, your normal family, and just change one thing. Look at, Third Rock from the Sun is a great example. It's just a family comedy, father, son, brother, everybody, except they're aliens. So everyone reacts a little bit differently to what's going on. This is kind of the same thing, right? At the heart of it, it's a family. They're living a fairly normal life, except that Grandpa is a mad scientist who has access to a portal gun, and it takes the normal family off in a lot of different directions. Because but that's why they keep having those stories about Beth and Jerry and their marriage, and how the kids are related and things like that, because it is just kind of a normal family sitcom with this absolutely insane element in it.
And it's also the flow of these things. And Nick, definitely I do like the aspect of the show, and when you're watching the entire series, it's good that there is an overlying type of story and plot. But if you are somebody watching the first time, and maybe you just look at it as standalones, I mean, it's really important how you create moments. That for me, making content doesn't matter what it is. It could be a TV show, movie, streams, whatever it is. It's just about making these moments that people remember and will laugh or will cry or whatever it is. And with this particular series, and maybe things that are somewhat similar to it, it's about the flow of the episode. And they do a really good job of mixing smart moments with silly moments, and the timing of it. It's all about timing. And that's why it's so rare that you find these series that are just, just a work of art. Just like they're brilliant, I guess, for lack of a better word. And Rick and Morty does that. Like it will literally go from a very serious, smart type of angle into immediately somebody farting, and you're just like, oh my God, that was like so good, instead of just having an entire episode of just farting jokes here and there and, that sort of thing. And we see that type of content in other, or type of animated series or whatever it is. And this one's just a combination of that. And that's what sets it apart.
Fluffy Brick in the chat also brought up a word I think is very, very important. Unpredictable. It's unpredictability.
Yeah, that's
like the fact that it's unpredictable makes every episode enjoyable, because there's been so many times I've been watching the show and I think I've got it figured out, or I think it's going in a certain direction, or I think certain people that watch a lot of movies and shows, they find some enjoyment of kind of trying to figure it. It's almost like a mystery, like trying to figure it out before it happens. I don't know if anybody else does. I definitely do. And in this show, it's one of those shows, it's like, hands up, I don't know what the fuck is going on, where you just get in the roller coaster and you ride, because anytime you think you've got it figured out, Rick does something, that just completely flips it on its head, and you're just like, well, I don't know shit, actually to Diction's point, I've talked about this a couple of times. I've mentioned that I've been watching through King of the Hill. And King of the Hill is to me like, it's almost like I'm preparing for a marathon. My goal is to watch through every episode of The Simpsons. So I'm picking like some other animated shows and watching through that have long season runs, but also each season has a bunch of episodes in them. And what I found was, I just finished King of the Hill, which is 13 seasons. Many seasons had like 25 episodes in them. When I got done with that, and it's an excellent show, a really hilarious show, I found myself wanting more out of it. I wanted more connections. I wanted the characters to have more secrets. I wanted, like there's all this stuff. Like when it got done, it was almost like, why the fuck did I watch all those little 30-minute clips of these guys? While it was great and it's creative and everything, it's like this show set a different standard for me when it comes to watching shows. And I think I can also mention Arrested Development in that too, where the interconnection between everything. Now that show takes it to the absolute, this is on the maximum end of the spectrum. I find enjoyment in when I'm watching the show to see how these characters interact, to see these little side remarks and these little inside jokes, and they build on each other, and it becomes this huge conglomerate, this huge universe. It's a universe creation, right? Whereas like older animated shows like King of the Hill, these standalone, and they don't really develop the world. They just kind of live in it, and this is what it is, and nothing really changes that much, Great show still, but I don't know. I just thought I'd mention that. I totally agree with Diction for sure.
It doesn't necessarily make it a bad show.
It doesn't, yeah.
But sometimes shows like that will just rest on their laurels, Like Family Guy definitely did, and they got picked back up, and they're just like, oh, we can just get away with these throwaway non sequitur jokes constantly, and people will eat it up. All right, cool. Let's just do that. It's like, I totally love that South Park episode where they made fun of them with the manatees with the bubble balls and stuff, just like putting 3 balls together with different words on them and creating a joke out of it. It's like, dude, it's spot on. That's so spot on, man.
I forgot about that. Wait. Does that mean then that South Park is in the Rick and Morty universe as well?
Here's hoping. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, because if you think about it, they were on The Simpsons with Family Guy.
You've heard that theory. There's the theory that like almost every show, it's like 80% of shows are somehow related to St. Elmo's Fire, I think it is. Because like
7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
No, you mean St. Elsewhere, the one with the
St.
hospital.
Elsewhere, yeah, where like there's some crazy theory where like almost all the shows on that network can be tied to that show as being in like this kid's dream or something.
Oh wow!
And
the series ended with a zoom out of the hospital that you've always seen the exterior of, and it's inside a snow globe. And the entire show took place in this autistic kid's mind, apparently.
Oh man!
And it's like it's a notorious ending for being full of fucking shit.
Yeah.
And like everyone hated it, but it's created a lot of really interesting theories about like what could be connected to that. stupid hospital
Yes,
shows.
it's called the Saint Elsewhere theory.
Saint Elsewhere.
It's got a name and everything.
The Tommy Westfall universe.
I had no idea about that.
That's funny.
The closest I've known is like the Pixar theory, where like every movie is related in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, every single Pixar movie has the truck from Pizza Planet in it, and every single one. Toy Story.
I think it's worth mentioning too that, you know, as humanity moves on and creates new technology, especially in the last 20 or 30 years, our technology's been incredible. We've got the internet, computers, spaceships, and all sorts of fucking shit, not spaceships, but shuttles, you know what I mean? But the thing is that as these new ideas, as we're expanding our minds as human beings, the ideas for creativity in these shows become broader as well. So could you have imagined this show existing 30 years ago, a Rick and Morty, with virtual reality and all these ideas and everything? It's like Black Mirror, it's not so far-fetched these days, because all this new technology is really sort of untouched by media and where we can go with it, what we can do with it as far as creating stories. So I think that even as we continue to further develop humanity, technology, in a technology sense, or learning more about science in our world and our environment, we're going to see just new material. It's like new material for comedians. It's like comedians say that they can if you want 7 minutes of material, have a kid. It's like it puts a whole new spin on things. Like you just get more. It's like humanity itself is creating more material, and certain people like Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon are creating shows based on it. So just something else to mention that I thought was pretty interesting.
And you look back at sort of the history of television, you've got moments like the Twilight Zone, like the Outer Limits. The Outer Limits starts with sort of fucking with your perception of what TV is. So there's nothing wrong with your TV. Don't adjust it. And even shows like Saturday Night Live that started playing with is this real? Is this fake? Are things really happening? Television has really been pushing on sort of itself. And, I think you're totally right. There wasn't a reason to discuss, multiple universes until the last 15 or 20 years, when it's become sort of a generally accepted theory that's possible. Mm-hmm. VR wasn't a big enough thing to have a bit like Roy, because if you did VR in the 80s and you saw Lawnmower Man, you hit the pinnacle of what you could do. Right?
Oh man, don't even remind me about that one.
Well, they call that episode Lawnmower something. I think they reference it in the episode title. It's actually called Lawnmower something. There was one episode they called Lawnmower something. I'll have to look it up. But anyways, yeah.
No, Twilight. So, yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean, Twilight Zone was before its time. I don't think Twilight Zone was nearly as successful as it should have been, with just all the different themes they had back then. It's no different than a lot of the popular stuff now. So it's funny. Sometimes it's just a matter of timing and
you go evolution. Back and watch the Twilight Zone, and a lot of it holds up. It's still really interesting. Yeah. Black Mirror is the same way, and Rick and Morty also feels like it's ahead of other stuff that's on TV, because it is. Nobody's talking about subjects like this except for Dan Harmon on Community before, and he's found a better medium to express a lot of these ideas.
Yep. All right, Aura, thanks, man.
No problem. I had a good time.
Yeah.
Always good having you.
We'll talk to you next week.
Lawnmower Dog. Yeah, it's Lawnmower Dog. It's the second episode. Yeah. But here's kind of a funny thing. This doesn't really have to do with the show, but more about Dan Harmon, since you just mentioned him. A lot, we talked about the podcast a little bit, but there's kind of a funny, because of the impromptu nature of it, there's kind of a funny little story that happened with that show. One of the shows that they were doing, Dan Harmon randomly wanted to play some Dungeons and Dragons, and you guys might know this story, maybe you don't.
Oh yeah, Spencer.
Yeah, Spencer. So
he follows me on Twitter. We talk sometimes. He's cool.
Really?
Yeah, he's super nice.
I'm so jelly. Hopefully I'll meet him one day. Basically what happened was he was on stage, he was doing a show, and he's like, man, I want to play some D&D. And he just asked the crowd, he's like, anybody have Dungeons and Dragons anybody a dungeon master, somebody who can run the game?
Wow.
And this guy raised his hand. He's like, actually, I do. I have all my stuff. He had actually brought it there with the purpose of maybe he'll call me out, maybe he'll want this, and I'll be there to DM for him. Like, he brought all this stuff to the show just randomly on his own volition, and then Dan Harmon happened to randomly ask for a dungeon master. They brought him up on stage, and now he's a regular. He went on tour with them. He's part of the show. He's like a regular part of the show
for a while. Like he was in an episode of Community.
He's in an episode of Community.
Now he's the showrunner for their Harmon Quest show on CISO, which is them doing. They do a D&D session with like a new celebrity every week, and then they have animated segments and stuff, and it's fucking hilarious and awesome.
Yeah, if you get a chance to check out Harmon Quest, that's another one that you guys should probably jump into. But it's just kind of a cool little tidbit story that I found really interesting. That the nature of his show is so inclusive that even audience members can become a regular part of the show. Like, where does that happen? How does that fucking
that dude Adam that they're always making fun of that will come up and like. What's his last name? Flanzy will know it. Flanzy listen, but but he's there every week, and then they'll usually call him out, and he'll come up and he'll just like spout some weird knowledge or something or something. He's just like an encyclopedic dude. Like,
I know what you're talking about, but it's
yeah.
But anyways, it's just kind of an interesting tidbit. And now Spencer on his own is an incredible human being. Like, if you talk, not to talk to him, but if you see anything about him or anything, I mean, he's in himself a very interesting person. So it's not just some, it just happened that the rando person he picked out was somebody who was quite interesting, but still pretty cool.
Did he know anything? Did he know that Dan liked D&D or anything before that?
Yeah, he'd been to the show before.
Oh, okay. So there was at least. I thought he literally randomly decided to carry.
No, I mean, he knew Dan Harmon what he was about, but it was him just bringing it just in case. Like, it wasn't like he had
on a whim.
On a whim, kind of thing. So
right.
Did Monkey?
Monkey wants to call in. So let me pull him in.
Cool.
What's up, Monkey?
Hey guys.
Hey, first off, thanks for always, being our filter for all the callers. Because this is the guy. This is the guy, folks, that you be listening and watching. Behind the scenes. That's all, sitting in our general channel, lonely most of the time, but he's always there. So I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, it's no problem. It's good to get people on here. I know a lot of people like to, join streams and have so many different insightful things to say, and so it's good to offer that opportunity to you guys.
We appreciate it, man. So what's on your mind?
I had a question. This actually has to do with the Unity episode, the very ending. I'm curious what you guys think was going through Rick's mind at the end of that episode.
Oh, man. That's tough. I've thought about this a lot, actually, because what it looks like is that he went to commit suicide and sort of, I don't know if he was drunk or not, but it's almost like he set himself up to commit suicide, maybe passed out and just barely didn't, and so it's, I don't know. It left me feeling weird too. Like, is Rick suicidal? Is he truly suicidal? Was it just a fleeting moment or something like that? It doesn't seem like Rick is the type of person to give into his emotions to that degree. Well,
it was connected to the wubba lubba dub dub meaning thing that Birdman says.
Oh, right.
Where it's it's like he's basically crying out for help. He's lonely, and like literally Morty and his daughter are the only people in the world that he has as a constant in his life. Whereas Unity is a constant. Like, she fucking is everywhere and wherever she wants to be, essentially, with a bunch of people and cohabitating constantly.
What a great relationship, though, man. like think about, like, when he goes into the stadium filled with redheads cheered on by people who look like his dad or whatever. It's like, wow, what a crazy fucking thing. It's like, well, you are all these people. I'm dating all of them,
I love too how when Morty and Summer doesn't like it at all, and Morty's like, "What else do you want? They're carving you into Mount Rushmore. They made burgers. Come on, they made burgers." But yeah, I mean, I think that you're looking at like the complexity of the show, and Rick is a human being. He's lonely. He's and Unity is a sort of perfect match for him in a lot of ways. Like, they clearly get up to all kinds of no good and have a great time together, and he knows that if he wanted to, he could go down that path and he could do that, but it also it completely conflicts with what he wants to do, and the way he's living his life and his purpose, whatever his purpose is. And, that's got to be painful to see the sacrifice that, you're making in order to to do the thing you want to do.
Yeah, it's almost like is it Unity herself that he's kind of upset with, or is it something deeper that's kind of in the debate? Is that is Rick just this genius that nobody can get, and he's just so out there and doing his own thing, and there's just no hope whatsoever that he ever finds love? And this Unity creature might have been the closest thing, but is there any compassion there for Unity? Because he was there for himself. He went on these parties and he kind of used her ability to do the things they loved, and it was still about Rick, but what it's trying to figure out what's he looking for, what got him so distressed there.
Well, I think loneliness is the key word here, right? Because it's not even just loneliness of the loneliness that you feel when you don't have a companion. We're talking about the loneliness that a super genius feels when he's the smartest person in the entire universe and nobody is on his level. Imagine if you lived in a universe of people where all the rest of the people that were around you were cavemen. Like that's basic. You're going to feel lonely on that level too. So I think it's just multiple layers of loneliness. Yeah. Unity is the closest thing that we've seen that he has to what, you would call a meaningful relationship. He obviously cares about, them very much, but the thing is I think it's just the wubba lubba dub dub, man, the fucking ultimate sense of loneliness on all levels. It's
and
not
she also
one.
basically hit the nail on the head, unquestionably. She's like, I'm changing. I've been changing. You're still the same person. And that's basically it. Like you realize it's been 20 years since we hooked up, and I'm still this curmudgeon drunkard who goes on these adventures that don't lead to anything terribly, necessary for my life. Mm-hmm. Just for fun, basically.
And I got to throw out there too. I think that episode, we see a lot of Dan Harmon in that episode. Like we really do, because Dan Harmon, if you watch his documentary, you see somebody who is really honestly a creative genius, and he's very hard to define, and he has very interesting relationships with people, and I think it makes him feel distant to people sometimes too. So I think that episode specifically, that scene specifically, is, in my opinion, this I could be totally wrong, I'm speculating here, but I see a lot of Dan Harmon there, just kind of on the outside. Not that he can't relate with people at all. It's just that you've got this creative mind, and you're thinking all these thoughts, and you're creating all these things and having all these interactions, and then some people get it, some people don't, and it can feel sometimes isolating when people don't get you or don't get it. So anyways. But yeah, I think loneliness is pretty much the overall theme there. But that's the best guess. I don't know. I've thought about it before too. It's interesting that you would ask that specifically, because
yeah, that ending it always kind of hit me. And that's one of the few things I kind of go back and I like to just watch a video every once in a while and just kind of think. And that's one of those ones I always kind of go back to. It's like, what's Rick doing? And I can kind of relate to it on my own level of loneliness. Is that it's so easy to kind of relate to that. Plus the fact, who wouldn't be depressed if you just lost Christina Hendricks? So
yeah. Oh my God, Christina Hendricks. The curves, man, the curves.
She's married to the Snosberries Tastes Like Snosberries guys from Super Troopers.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I did know that. That's crazy. What a lucky bitch. Oh man, she drove me mad. And Mad Men. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on. I blacked out. What happened? I went into a pleasure coma.
Pleasure zone.
Yeah, one thing that is really interesting to me about that episode is you don't ever see collective consciousnesses portrayed in a positive way. There's never in science fiction, you never have hey, these are the Borg, they're the good guys. Everyone should want to be like that. It's really interesting because Unity was probably the closest to a positive collective consciousness that we've seen, and it was still everyone revolts against her.
Yeah, that's true.
The people she chooses to inhabit are the sick and twisted. So yeah, I never really thought of it on that level. I kind of got the whole where it twists to where first it starts off all frightening in this spaceship, oh my God, this creature is taking over everybody and we're about to be brain dead zombies. But then it kind of twists over to be something positive. We find out people that are all pedophiles and murderers and all that. It's this is kind of how this collective consciousness has evolved, and it kind of goes with how she's becoming more mature and can't hang out with Rick anymore. And that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
all right, Monkey.
Ex-girlfriends are a bitch, man.
Ex-girlfriends are a bitch.
That's my other answer. The other answer is ex-girlfriends are a
man.
bitch. All right.
Nice. All right, Monkey. Well, thanks for the added thought there, because it's definitely a great way to finish the series. Whenever you're done with the season, right? It's always good to leave it with a bit of a cliffhanger or something to really think about. I don't know what the first episode of season 3 is like. I don't know if that resolved it at all or not, but I felt like that ending was a good one.
Season 3 isn't even out until this summer or something. Like, they just gave us season 1 of season 3. It's kind of like a kind of a fuck you, but it's like a nice fuck you from Dan Harmon, because he talks about on his podcast how often people ask, like, when's the next season of Rick and Morty? Probably the most asked thing. So he was just like, here, take one fucking episode, leave me the fuck alone. And it's like, just get one episode just to sate your hunger just a little. It's like just a taste. And now he's holding the rest of it until summer, because it has to be completed. But it's kind of like a fuck you, like, get off my back. Here's an episode. Leave me alone. It's April 1st.
Wouldn't it be cool?
I can tell you too.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
Oh, so from working at big companies, like working at Sony and places like that, April Fools is always something everyone's trying to do, like that 10 out of 10 amazing joke. And most of the time, you just can't get everything organized. It's like an afterthought, that sort of thing. So I really think the fact that they're like, well, we have the first episode ready. What would be more of a crazy April Fool's joke than, let's just play it. We won't tell anyone. Just put it on the air. Like, people will flip their lids over it. And to actually see an April Fool's joke, because now there's so much pushback on April Fools, because the internet, it's like you can't even read anything.
Yeah, you don't even want to get on the internet on April Fools.
And so the trick now is to actually deliver on April Fool's Day. And the fact that they delivered this, like Ella was saying, the most requested thing in the universe right now was amazing. And man, the amount of salt, because I just retweeted whatever on April Fool's Day about it, the amount of salty responses I got back from anime fans who were like, you screwed up my Dragon Ball Z. Like, why did you do that? I just want to watch Dragon Ball Z. And I was like, wow. It's freaking April Fool's Day, man. You got.
You got.
I retweeted that the episode was live, and I got so many people getting back to me like, har, hello, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, just click the link. Just click it. I was freaking out because it was a real episode. I'm like, just click it. I'm like,
it's going to be over before you know it.
Yeah, it's going to be over by midnight. Somebody probably captured it somewhere, but like, you gotta see this. Okay, hello. So it's actually it's like a reverse April Fool's joke that ends up being way more effective than a regular April Fool's joke.
Oh yeah.
So it's again just another testament to the fucking brilliance of the show and the creators. Like, it's genius, man. It's sort of genius in a way. Even the release of that, and it got so much buzz. It's great. So
yeah. All right, Monkey. Well, let's talk to you next time. Thanks for the added topic or added thought to the discussion.
Love you, Monkey.
No problem, guys. Have a happy 420.
All right, thanks.
Will do.
All right,
I don't get it.
What?
I'm gonna work out and I'm gonna eat some ribs today, okay? And I'm gonna scream. That's my plan.
All right, so should we wrap up and talk about next week?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it, man.
So those of you wondering about next week, what we do is we always announce the topic for the next episode, just so that you guys have a week to go and watch it or read it or whatever source of media it is. And next week we are doing Cloverfield. Well, it's a couple of
Cloverfi.
Cloverfi.
With nobody else.
Cloverfi. It's a new.
Cloverfi.
Yeah, I love Cloverfi.
Chan, you forgot our cameras again on this.
Oh
scene.
my god! I'm so bad.
It's all right, Boo Boo. We forgive you.
Well, what's so funny is that when we were coming up with this, originally I was talking about doing 10 Cloverfield, but then the guys were telling me that the original, obviously Cloverfield, was much better, and that 10 Cloverfield has nothing to do with it.
It wasn't the guys. It was me. It was me. He wanted to do 10 Cloverfield Lane.
10 Cloverfield's way fucking better of a film.
I thought you said it was better. I thought you said it was also better.
No, Cloverfield, it's all right, but no,
I liked it better.
Lane is fucking amazing.
Okay. Oh shoot. Okay, we're gonna have to do both. I haven't seen either of them.
This was 100% me. Like I took what you wanted and I totally manipulated into what I wanted.
Well,
so
honestly,
it's like, oh, you want to watch 10 Cloverfield Lane? Well, how about Cloverfield? Because I like that better. So
I actually didn't even think about the original Cloverfield, so I was down for either. So I guess the tiebreaker would have been Omeed. I should just ask Omeed in the end.
That's what I said. I said ask Diction or Omeed. That's what I said in the chat. I was like, like just the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I haven't seen 10 Cloverfield, so I have no idea. Cloverfield, the original, was perfectly fine. Good, interesting movie to watch.
Their marketing strategy was a lot more interesting than the actual film that was released.
Yes. Yeah. And that was really, I mean, some of what we were talking about with the virality of the April Fool's joke, that's what they were going for, 10 years ago when that was really not something that was easy to pull off because, social media didn't exist in the same way. Like there wasn't, you didn't even have influencers the way that you have them now who can really start to push stuff like that. But to really just say like no one can be told what Cloverfield is, you just have to show up and see it. It kind of worked,
Especially with like all these movies that get spoiled way before. Like someone like they just released the track list for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's like I don't want to know that. I want to go in fresh and hear the music and be like, oh fuck that song, that's awesome. Like why would you spoil that for the audience, dude? It's so stupid.
You got people like my mom.
It hinges so hard on that soundtrack. It makes the movie what it is. And they're like, hey, here you go. Here you go. Spoilers.
Who are the people that are on the fence? It's like, well, if the soundtrack is good,
I know, right?
Then I'll go.
And listen,
what percentage of people? Yeah.
You say that, but my mom is that way. She wants to listen. Like if she goes to a play or sees a movie or whatever, she wants to listen to all the music first, so that when she's watching it, she can enjoy, especially for plays. I think it's like Wicked. Like she listened to all the music for Wicked before she went.
Oh, that's different.
Just because
that's
she felt like
yeah,
and I get that, but you're but she does it even for films too. Sometimes like she'll see what like the soundtrack is. She'll listen to all the music. For some reason, it gets her hyped up. I guess in her explanation, it pulls her deeper into the immersion of the movie to identify with the music without it actually spoiling anything of the content.
I got it. I know why they did that. Is they want to start selling the soundtrack 2 weeks ahead of time because the movie is so good and
a lot of
so
movies
hype.
Do. A lot of movies do that actually. Just sell the soundtrack.
I'd release the fucking the album on like Thursday night when midnight showings are happening. Like that's. I mean, everyone's gonna buy digital anyway. It's like literally you just put it on iTunes and boom, people will buy it. Like,
I'm with you, Nick. I'm 100% with you.
Yeah, I am too. But I mean, we saw it even with like 50 Shades or just like recently. They sold that soundtrack before the movie was even out. Probably, because the movie probably sucked.
You're thinking that fucking movie?
I didn't see it, but I'm sure it probably was.
The soundtrack was amazing.
Yeah, the soundtrack was amazing.
It's the only good part about it.
I flipped through it for the sex scenes, but that's about it.
What sex scenes?
What sex scenes?
50 Shades of Grey? Never mind. Yeah.
No, I mean at least the second one, right?
Anyway, I guess there was.
Yeah, so definitely go check it out. And this is something that we've been talking about doing too, which is going back and watching some movies that are a bit older. So there's less of a chance that you guys haven't seen it versus seeing something that's very current, where at least half of you guys probably won't see a movie if we do it literally on the week of the release of the movie. So we're gonna be popping these in every once in a while. So be on the lookout for it.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we chose this movie specifically, or that I wanted to watch or have you guys watch this movie specifically, is just because of the way they film it, almost entirely. Because it's a movie filmed in a very, very, very interesting way, and I feel like our conversations are gonna have a lot to do with just the way they filmed it, just as much as it will the content of what is actually in the film. Right. So it's definitely a little bit different than your normal your normal movie. So that's why I thought it would be good.
Well, I mean, found footage is a dime a dozen now, but like definitely like mods, like giant kaiju movies like that. That was probably the first one that did that.
Yeah. This is
I could give you a list of found footage. I watched one last night, Ghost Watch, that was banned for 25 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
What? We'll have to talk about that after.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's actually really fucking good.
It sounds like deep. So
yes,
yeah,
super deep.
I'll talk about it next week when we're talking about a found footage movie. It'll flow better.
Okay,
great,
awesome. Well, Omeed, it's awesome having you on, man. Talking
man,
Rick and Morty. I mean, you had a lot of great thoughts and things to add to the discussion.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
We have to have you on again for sure. What's your other favorite shows in movies so that we
Well, so if you want to do a Quentin Tarantino anything, I'll do that. Like, I'll go super deep. From. The Fifth Element, like I was saying before the show, I think it would.
I'll be cool to revisit.
I love The West Wing. I love freaking King of the Hill. The Simpsons. Star Trek. Anything we'll go super hard into. The Room. Have you guys done The Room?
We haven't done that.
When we started the show, I was like, we should do the first episode on The Room. Because it's a conversation topic, and Chairman was like, I don't think people know about that movie. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude?
Well, all right, we'll do The Room. We will definitely do that.
We got to do The Room.
We don't know if we'll do The Room, Chan. We keep it a secret.
Okay, sorry. We'll do the we'll do The Room. April Fools. We won't do The Room, guys. We won't do The Room.
Now, is this a Dan Harmon April Fools or is this a regular April Fools? Because this could mean two different things at this point.
Right. Okay. Well, that's definitely great. But I guess, do you stream anymore or ever?
Theoretically,
like out time.
Omeed's so busy, man.
Now, you know.
Well, so yeah, my name is Omeed. I do very occasionally stream. I haven't for a couple months because we've been real busy with the company. But my primary job is I run a management company called Online Performers Group. We manage these gentlemen over here. Damn it. So bad at this. See, not pro streamer, not pro streamer. There we go. There we go. Yes, these guys over here, Diction, Ellohime, a few other folks. We provide services for them to just sort of make their lives easier and help them make more money, and show up on time for shows like this one. And yeah, before that, I just worked in the game industry on tons and tons of stuff. Worked on animation. You can watch, my horrible shows on Netflix and YouTube. But yeah, you should follow these guys. And I'm at Omeed on Twitter. I'm Omeed on Twitch. Generally, somehow I get that name.
Good. Where did Omeed come from? Actually, I never got a chance to ask you that.
It's
just your name, right? It's just your first name.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm like having a total brain.
It came from his birth certificate.
Exactly. It came from my parents. It's like.
Well, I can look up the lineage of the name Omeed and where it actually.
Exactly.
Or I can just tell you.
Oh yeah, you can just tell us.
It's a very common Iranian name. My father is Iranian, so. My mom wanted to name me, like Brian or something, but while she was knocked out from delivery, I got named Omeed, and she, I guess, just so. But it's very rare to meet people named Omeed in the U.S. Yep. But when I went to Iran when I was a kid, like freaking everybody is named Omeed. Like, this is your cousin Omeed, your other cousin Omeed. We're gonna go down to the Omeed restaurant on Omeed Street.
Oh really? Oh my god!
It was so rough because like. You're in this situation, you hear somebody call Omeed, you're like, oh, well, obviously they're calling me. And they're like, not you. I was like, what? Like, you guys have special.
Exactly.
Yeah, you guys have more common names, so that happens to you a lot. But imagine suddenly, like, you're the only Adam in the universe. Like, that's how it's felt. Like I literally, when I got on the internet originally, I got an email from a guy that was like Omeed 6012 at yahoo.com, and it just said, dude, we have the same name. So happy.
Wait. Okay, so not to ruin the flow here or anything, but we got to back up a second. Did you say did your dad hijack your name while your mom was knocked out from childbirth? Like she was so tired from childbirth that she couldn't name you what she wanted to, so your dad named you before she could wake up?
Well, we don't use that word hijack in Fidel. But other than
oh man. Yes.
We had my mom had a C-section, so they like super knocked her out. My mom actually went into labor while watching the movie Animal House, which makes things. And
That makes so much sense.
She was just like knocked out, like waking up, whatever. My dad's like, put down Omeed. And
Put down Omeed. Wow.
She wakes up and she's like, damn it.
So, that's cool. I didn't know that. That's funny, man.
Did they get the middle name though in there, Brian, instead?
Oh no. My middle name's real weird.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Iranian naming is a lot like Pokemon. Like you collect names as you level up.
Right, like your dad's.
So
thing.
Yeah, I'm 100% not kidding. Like you ever watch the news? It's Arab names are like that too, and they're like, here's some terrorist, and his name is like Mohammed Hassan al bin Basad al Mashdi al Jafar, and you're like, how the fuck does anyone have 300 names? And you can actually like add names onto your name by completing literally quests. Like if you go on like religious pilgrimages and things, you get titles, and they tack onto the back of your name.
So technically, this isn't even your final form.
No,
right.
It's definitely
not. That's great. It's like, man, I'm glad Diction's next online here.
Exactly.
It's like, and tell us about you, Diction.
Exactly. Speaking of which, shout outs, Diction.
Hi, I'm Eat by Diction 1. You find me at twitch.tv/eatbydiction1. I'll be streaming later. I'm going to start up Nier Automata because everyone says it's amazing and it looks really cool, and I need a good slashy Japanese mindfuckery game to play. Yeah, about it. What I got going on?
Hello.
Hi everybody. This is my channel. So if you wanted to toss a follow, this is probably the place. All my social media is on here at Ellohime Twitch for Twitter. I'm going to be streaming tomorrow morning some Watch Dogs 2. They've got a new game mode supposedly, so we're going to check it out, and that should be fun. We're going to do that a little bit. We may switch games up. I don't know. We may just stick with it. So that's on the docket for tomorrow. But I fly out tomorrow to Tennessee. My sister's having a wedding this weekend at my parents' place, so I am going to be gone all weekend until Tuesday. I fly back Monday, so Tuesday morning stream should continue. And I believe we've got a sponsored stream with King Gathalion. Actually, Omeed can probably tell us better than King Gathalion and Professor Broman. I believe that's on the 27th, no, the 26th. The 26th. And we're going to be playing a game called Earthfall, I believe it's called. It's kind of like the way it's been pitched to me is it is a sci-fi Left 4 Dead is kind of what it is. So that should be a lot of
zombies. It's
cool.
aliens. Yeah.
And they're in Portland.
And they're in Portland.
They're in Portland? Okay.
Yeah, the first time that the guys explained it to me, they were very insistent. It's like Left 4 Dead, with aliens, and they're in Portland. And I was like,
as long as there's a hunter character
are they free-range grass-fed aliens?
Sold.
But they're all riding bikes and drinking craft beer.
Oh my god! Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah. So I think that's me. I think that's the thing. Oh, and then we're gonna be playing a little Prey next week too. So other than that, I think that's about all that's going on with me. Chan, what's going on with you, dude?
Me, I'm going to be doing another show here in about an hour. That's the overview. If you're into Overwatch, come over to twitch.tv/ChanManV and watch that. We've got a couple guys from Selfless that are going to be on and just talking about the whole esports scene and all that good stuff. And if you're interested in any of the other shows that I do, Value Town, Hearthstone, and also a game show that I've been producing recently, Streamer Showdown, that we did on Tuesday, you can check that out on youtube.com/ChanManV. All the VODs are there. You can follow me on Twitter too, ChanManV. But yeah, that's going to be it, guys, for spoiler alerts this week. So for Omeed, Eat My Diction, Ellohime, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next week.
Or not.